Imagine a long table in a dim room, not a courtroom, not a boardroom, a room you have been sitting in for years without noticing. Around the table are seated several versions of you. They all look like you, more or less. They are all wearing the same tired patience, and they all have something to say before you are allowed to leave. One of them rests his chin on his hand and says, "I'll start Monday." Another shrugs, palms up, and says, "Just this once." A third, all reasonableness, says, "I'll do it tomorrow." A fourth wrings his hands and says, "I need to feel ready." A fifth points a finger and says, "It's not the right time." The sixth, slumped and smiling, says, "I deserve a break." They are not villains. They sound almost kind. That is the problem. Each one sounds like a friend looking out for you. Each one sounds reasonable alone. And together, every day, they keep you in the same chair, at the same table, in the same room, negotiating with yourself about a thing you already decided to do weeks ago. This is the negotiation loop, and you have been running it so long it feels like thinking. It is not thinking. It is a meeting that never ends, called to discuss a decision you already made, reopening it, softening it, postponing it, and then adjourning until tomorrow, when the same meeting is called again. The room has no door you can see because you have stopped looking for one. But there is a door. It is on the far side of the room where a line of light falls across the floor. You have seen it. You call it someday. It is closer than that. And the only thing standing between you and it is the table and the versions of you who keep asking you to sit back down. There is a version of your life that begins the day you stop asking yourself for permission to do what you already know must be done. Not a better version, the actual version, the one that has been waiting on the other side of the table the whole time. This audiobook is about how to stand up, walk past the chairs, and leave, not by becoming a different person, by stopping the negotiation with the one you already are. The negotiation loop is not a single lie. It is a process. You form an intention to write, to move, to speak, to begin. Then before the intention becomes an action, a voice asks a question. Are you sure now is the time? You answer. The answer feels like prudence. It is usually a delay. The intention survives the conversation, but the action does not. Tomorrow the same intention returns, and so does the same voice, and so does the same soft delay. That is the loop. What makes it invisible is that each round feels unique. Monday feels different from tomorrow, which feels different from just this once. But the structure is identical every time. Intention appears, negotiation opens, action is postponed, intention reappears. The content changes. The loop does not. You are not making 16 different decisions. You are making the same one 16 times and losing it each time in a meeting you called yourself. A man I know described his 30s as 10 years of Mondays. He was not lazy. He was diligent at the table. Every Sunday he set the intention with real feeling. Every Monday, a reasonable voice explained why this Monday was not the ideal Monday. By Friday, he had negotiated himself into next week, and the cycle paid him in the same life he was trying to escape. The diligence was real and completely spent on staying still. The loop does not require laziness. It requires only that you keep showing up to a meeting with no exit. The first move out of the loop is not willpower. It is recognition. The next time a voice offers you a reason to wait, name it for what it is, a reopened negotiation on a decision you already made. You do not need a better argument. You need to stop treating the reopened question as a new question. It is the same question asked by the same committee in the same room. Recognize the meeting, then leave it. A concrete way to practice the recognition, because it is easy to know and hard to catch in the moment. Keep a private note titled "The Meeting Log." Each time you hear a reason to delay a thing you already intended, write one line, the intention, the excuse, and the time of day. Do not write it to shame yourself. Write it to make the loop visible. Within a week you will see the pattern plainly. The same handful of excuses, rotated, dressed in the day's circumstances. The log turns an invisible habit into a seen one, and a seen loop is a loop you can interrupt because you are no longer negotiating in the dark. The committee prefers the dark. The log turns on the light. Most people stay trapped not because the loop is unbreakable, but because they never actually looked at it. Look, the shape is always the same, and once you know the shape, you can name it the moment it appears, and naming it is the first step out of the room. Most advice starts by telling you what to do. That is the wrong starting point because you already know. You know the page needs writing. You know the body needs moving. You know the hard conversation needs having. You know the money needs looking at. The deficit is never information. It is the gap between knowing and doing, and that gap is where the negotiation lives. We pretend the gap is a knowledge problem because knowledge feels solvable. Read the book, watch the video, learn the system. But you have read the books. You could teach the system. The reason you are still at the table is not that you are uninformed. It is that you have made a habit of redeciding what you already decided and calling the redecision thinking it through. There is a comfort in gathering more information. It feels like progress while costing you no action. The library becomes a hiding place. Consider how often you have said, "I know, but," and then filled the silence with a reason. The "I know" is true. The "but" is the negotiation reopening. Every self-help sentence you already agree with is proof you do not need more input. You need fewer meetings about the input you have. The person at the table who says, "I need to understand this better," is often the same person who understands it perfectly and does not want to begin. So before any method, accept the uncomfortable fact. You are not stuck because you are unclear. You are stuck because you keep negotiating with a clarity you already have. The freedom in that is real. If the problem were ignorance, you would be at the mercy of finding the right teacher. But the problem is self-negotiation, and that is a meeting you can walk out of whenever you choose. You already know. The only question left is whether you will act on what you know or discuss it again. A concrete example of the "I know but" pattern, because it is the whole trap in miniature. A person knows the page needs writing. The knowledge is complete. Then a voice says, "But I'm not in the right headspace," and the conversation opens. The "but" is not new information. It is a feeling presented as a reason. The person who says, "I know but I'm tired," has not discovered a fact that changes the decision. He has felt a feeling and mistaken it for a new variable. The loop lives entirely in that gap between a settled knowing and a feeling that pretends to unsettle it. Catch the "but" when it arrives. Ask whether it contains any actual new information. It almost never does. It contains a mood. A mood is not a reason to reopen a decision. Treat "I know but" as the sound of the meeting being called and decline to attend. You already know. The rest is weather. And notice the exhaustion this pattern creates. The person who redecides daily is not tired from the action. He is tired from the deciding. Each reopened question spends a unit of mental energy that the action itself would have spent more usefully. Decision fatigue is often not the fatigue of choosing. It is the fatigue of unchoosing and rechoosing the same thing. Close the meeting and the fatigue drops, not because the task is smaller, but because you stop paying the tax of endless reconsideration. You already know. Stop billing yourself for knowing. "I'll start Monday" is the most polite trap in the loop, which is why it is the most effective. Monday feels like a fresh line, a clean week, a symbolic reset. None of that is real, but it feels real, and the feeling is what keeps you seated. You are not promising to wait forever. You are promising to wait until a day that sounds like a beginning. That sound is the bait. The trap is that Monday does arrive, and when it does, it is just a day. Not cleaner, not more forgiving, simply Tuesday's sibling. And on that ordinary day, the same committee is waiting, now with a new line. "This Monday is busier than expected," or "next Monday." The reset was imaginary. The loop simply changed its costume. You did not start on Monday. You renegotiated on Monday. The week you gained was spent in the same chair. Notice the role of the calendar in all of this. We use time markers, Monday, the 1st, the new year, as if they carried force. They carry none. A decision made on a Tuesday has the same weight as one made on a Monday. The marker is a story we tell to make a delay feel like a plan. The cost is that we train ourselves to wait for a signal that does nothing, and in the waiting, the intention cools and the loop tightens. A cleaner rule, and it is nearly the whole cure. Start at the first available moment, not the first symbolic one. If the thing can be begun now, begin now in the unremarkable hour with no audience and no reset. The symbolic start is a negotiation in disguise. It asks permission to wait. The immediate start is a decision. It ends the discussion. Monday will come whether you start or not. The only question is whether you will still be at the table when it does. A fuller picture of why the symbolic start is so seductive. It lets you feel like you have begun without having begun. You pick the Monday, tell someone, maybe write it down, and a small glow arrives, the glow of a decision made. But no action followed. The glow is counterfeit. It spends the emotional credit of a start without paying the actual cost. And then, when Monday arrives and the loop reopens, you have already spent the motivation the intention generated. This is why people feel most inspired on Sunday and most stuck on Monday. They spent the inspiration on the announcement. The cure is to withhold the announcement until after the first action. Start now, in the unremarkable hour. Let the symbolic day pass unnoticed. The only Monday that matters is the one you are already moving on. The others are costumes the committee hands you so you can feel productive while staying seated. Just this once is the smallest trap and the most honest about what it is. It does not promise a delay. It promises a single exception, and a single exception feels harmless because it is single. But just this once is never once. It is the first of a sequence that always sounds the same and never ends. The phrase is a door that closes behind you. The danger is the framing. An exception implies a rule you intend to keep. But the moment you allow one exception, you have proven the rule is negotiable, and a negotiable rule is not a rule, it is a preference you occasionally honor. The next time, just this once returns because the precedent now exists. You taught yourself that the boundary bends. The bend becomes the shape. What started as a one-time mercy becomes the permanent texture of your standards. A woman I know used this phrase about a single skipped workout, then a single skipped page, then a single harsh word, each just this once, each apparently isolated. A year later, she did not see 6 exceptions. She saw a life where the things she cared about were optional because she had opted out gently, repeatedly. The first once was the seed. The rest was the harvest. She had not abandoned her standards. She had quietly reclassified them as suggestions, one merciful exception at a time. The defense is not severity. It is honesty about the word once. When you hear it, replace it with the truth. Just this once means every time, starting now. Test the phrase against reality and it fails every time. So when the voice offers you the single exception, decline it not because the thing is catastrophic but because the precedent is. You are not refusing the donut. You are refusing to become the person who bends at the first request. A moment of honesty about just this once. Because the phrase is most dangerous precisely when it is most reasonable. There are genuine exceptions, a celebration, a true emergency, a day your body genuinely will not. The problem is not that exceptions exist. The problem is that the loop uses the word once for things that are not exceptions at all, only mild inconveniences. The skill is to know the difference, and the loop's whole game is to blur it. A real exception is rare and obvious. A just this once from the committee is routine and convenient. When you hear the phrase, ask, is this actually rare or is it the third time this week wearing a different face? If the latter, it is not an exception. It is the pattern asking to continue. Refuse it not because the thing is catastrophic but because the asking is the loop. The donut is fine. The bending is the wound. And the bend is social as well as private. The same phrase appears when someone offers you the easy out. Just skip the workout with me, just have the one. Here the negotiation is outsourced, another person plays the committee. The refusal is the same. You are not rejecting the person. You are refusing to reopen a decision you closed. A friend who respects you will understand. A friend who needs you to bend may be one of the committee in disguise. Hold the line privately first, and the social line becomes easier because you are defending a decision, not arguing a preference. Just this once is never once. Treat it as the loop's favorite costume, and you will see it everywhere and stop answering it. Every negotiation ends the same way. with a start that does not happen and a restart that will be promised tomorrow. But restarts are not free. Each time you stop and re-begin, you pay a tax the first attempt did not charge. You lose the momentum, the small identity of someone who is doing the thing, and the psychological credit of a streak. Starting over is the most expensive thing you can do, and the loop makes it feel like responsibility. The cost is invisible because it is paid in a currency you do not track: continuity. A habit built for 30 days is not 30 single days. It is one continuous thread, and the thread is the asset. Break it, and you do not lose one day. You lose the thread, and the next beginning starts from zero with the added weight of a broken promise to yourself. The man with 10 years of Mondays did not accumulate 10 years of progress. He accumulated 10 years of restarts, each costing more than the last. There is also the less obvious cost: the erosion of self-trust. Every time you tell yourself you will begin and then negotiate yourself out of it, a small entry is written in a private ledger, the ledger where you record whether your own word means anything to you. Too many entries of promised, then didn't, and the word "I will" stops moving you. You become the person who announces and does not do, and the announcements get quieter because even you have stopped believing them. The cost of starting over is not just lost time. It is a quieter self, less able to believe its own intentions. So when the loop offers you a delay, price it honestly, not in the day you lose, in the thread you break and the entry you write. A delay is never just a delay. It is a restart you are prepaying, with interest drawn from your own credibility. The version of you on the other side of the table is not asking you to be perfect. He is asking you not to make him start again from nothing, for the 100th time, because of a conversation you could have ended. A concrete accounting of the restart tax, so it stops feeling abstract. Take a simple daily action: 20 minutes of movement. The person who does it daily for a month has not done 30 separate sessions. He has one continuous thread, and the thread is what his body and his identity register. The person who does it, skips a week, restarts, skips again, restarts, has done the same sessions minus the gaps, but registers none of the thread, only the breaks. Same calories, opposite life, because continuity is the asset and the loop taxes it. The man with 10 years of Mondays did not lack effort. He lacked continuity, because every delay broke the thread and charged him a restart. Price the delay not in the day but in the thread. That is the real cost of starting over, and it is why the person who tries constantly often has less to show than the person who simply continued. And the self-trust tax compounds the continuity tax. Each broken restart writes another line in the private ledger: promised, then didn't. After enough lines, the word "I will" loses its grip on you. You stop announcing because even you have stopped believing the announcement. The loop does not just cost you the action. It costs you the belief that your own intentions mean anything. Rebuild that belief by refusing the restart, by keeping the thread even when the feeling is gone. The thread is the remedy for the tax. Hold it, and the ledger slowly fills with "said, then did," until the word means something again. I need to feel ready. This is the trap dressed as wisdom. Readiness feels like a precondition for action, but it is usually a negotiation that waits for a feeling before permitting a choice. Feelings are not contracts. They are weather, and you do not wait for clear skies to keep a promise. You act, and the weather changes after you begin, not before. The trap works because readiness feels legitimate. Who would start unprepared? But prepared and ready are different. Prepared is a fact you can build. You have the page, the shoes, the number. Ready is a feeling that may never arrive and often arrives only after you have already begun. People wait for readiness and discover it shows up at chapter 3, not chapter 1. By then, if they waited, there is no chapter 1. The feeling was the reward for starting, mistaken for the requirement to start. A useful distinction. Motivation is a feeling that follows action far more often than it precedes it. We imagine the arrow goes knowing, right arrow feeling, right arrow doing. In real life, it usually goes knowing, right arrow doing, right arrow feeling. The person who waits to feel like it is waiting for the third step to arrive before taking the first. The loop loves this, because feelings are infinitely negotiable. You can always report that you do not feel ready yet, and who can argue with a feeling? No one. That is exactly why you cannot let a feeling hold the pen. So make the contract with the knowing, not the feeling. Decide while calm. Act while the feeling is absent. The readiness you are waiting for is on the other side of the first step, not before it. The man who needs to feel ready is the man who will feel ready only after he has already done the thing he was waiting to feel ready for, by which point the waiting was the only thing between him and it. A concrete reframe that helps, because feelings are weather is a slogan until you use it. When the voice says, "I need to feel ready," answer it literally. Ready is not a requirement I can meet by waiting. It is a state I reach by moving. Then act while the feeling is absent. The first action will feel wrong, that is the weather, not the decision. Within minutes, often the feeling arrives exactly as promised, but only after the step. People who wait for readiness are waiting downstream for water that only flows once you open the tap. Open the tap. The feeling is the water, not the condition for opening it. This single reframe, readiness follows action. It does not precede it, dissolves more. I need to feel ready negotiations than any amount of trying to manufacture the feeling. You cannot manufacture it. You can only outrun it by starting. And note the hidden cost of the readiness trap beyond delay. It trains you to distrust your own capacity to act without a feeling. The more you wait to feel ready, the more helpless you feel without the feeling, and the more you need it, a dependency loop on top of the negotiation loop. Break it early. Act once without the feeling, note that you survived and the feeling came, and you have evidence against the next, "I need to feel ready." The weather did not stop you. You stopped waiting for it. That evidence, like all evidence against the committee, is what eventually empties the room. Most of what you call decisions are preferences wearing a decision's clothes. A preference is what you would like, all else equal. A decision is what you will do, regardless of whether you feel like it, because you have chosen it as a standard. The loop survives by keeping your standards at the level of preferences, so that every moment of resistance can reopen the question. The exit begins when you learn to tell the two apart in your own mouth. Listen to your language. "I want to get in shape" is a preference. "I train at 6" is a decision. "I'd like to write more" is a preference. "I write 20 minutes before the day has an audience" is a decision. Preferences are weather vanes, they point where the wind pushes. Decisions are walls, the wind hits them and stops. The loop is the sound of a preference pretending to be a wall and failing, and then re-promising to be a wall tomorrow. A decision has a cost baked in. It binds you when you do not feel like it. That is not a bug. That is the entire function. A standard you abandon the moment it is inconvenient was never a standard. It was a hope. And hopes do not build lives, they decorate them. The person who says, "I decided," but then renegotiates at the first resistance did not decide. He hoped out loud. The committee knows the difference, which is why it only fears real decisions, those it cannot reopen. So convert one preference into a decision this week, and defend it against the first feeling of resistance. Not all of them. 1. "I will move my body for 20 minutes before the day negotiates with me," said once, kept once, defended once. That single conversion teaches you more than 10 books, because you feel the difference between a hope that dissolves and a decision that holds. The loop loses its power the moment one of your standards stops being negotiable. Start with 1. Let the rest of the table watch. A short exercise to make the conversion real. Take a single index card. Write on it in the present tense one decision. "I write 10 minutes each morning." Carry it for a week. Each morning before any negotiation can open, do the 10 minutes. Then mark the card. The card is not a tracker for show. It is a physical stand-in for the decision, sitting in your pocket, closing the topic before the committee convenes. People who try this report the strangest thing. The hardest part was not the 10 minutes. It was the first morning when the voice said, "Just check your phone first." The card answered without them having to argue. The topic was closed. The card said so. A decision externalized is easier to keep than one held in the moody weather of your mind. Write it down. Carry it. Let the paper be the wall the wind hits and stops. If the loop is a meeting that reopens every decision, the cure is to remove certain decisions from the meeting entirely. There are rules you do not renegotiate, not because you are rigid, but because a rule that can be reopened was never a rule. The standard is, the things that protect your future self and your self-trust are taken off the table. The committee is not allowed to discuss them. They are settled. What belongs in that category is personal, but the test is simple. Does reopening this decision tend to cost your future self or your credibility? If yes, it leaves the meeting, sleep, the honest word, the kept promise, the small daily action that compounds. These are not up for debate at 9 p.m. when you are tired and a reasonable voice explains why tonight is special. Tonight is never special. The specialness is the negotiation. Remove it. A man I know took exactly one thing off the table. He decided he would write 10 minutes every morning, and he declared, aloud to himself, that this was not a preference to be discussed. The first week, the committee arrived with "You're tired. It's not good anyway, just this once." He had preempted the meeting by deciding the topic was closed. He still felt the resistance. Feeling is allowed. Renegotiation is not. He wrote badly, tiredly, briefly. Within a month, the resistance was quieter because the loop had lost its favorite topic. The rule held because he refused to discuss it, not because he stopped wanting to quit. This is the quiet heart of discipline. Not the absence of the negotiation, but the refusal to entertain it on certain matters. You will still hear the voices. Everyone does. The difference is that some decisions are behind a door the committee cannot open. Build that door. Put your future self's protections behind it. Then when the voices arrive, and they will, there is simply no meeting to attend. The topic is closed. You are free to act. A practical way to build the door, because take it off the table is abstract until you operationalize it. Write a short list titled Closed Topics. Keep it small, 3 to 5 things that protect your future self or your self-trust. Sleep, the honest word, the daily action that compounds, the boundary you already know you need. Then the next time the committee raises one of these, you do not argue. You cite the list. Closed. The writing turns the decision into an external fact, sitting outside your moody mind, that the loop cannot reopen by appealing to how you feel in the moment. A person who keeps the list on the wall reports that the voices still come, but they now arrive at a locked door, and after a while they stop knocking as loudly. The door is not magic. It is a decision you made once, written down, and refused to relitigate. Build it. Most of the room's power vanishes the moment. A few topics are simply no longer up for discussion. A word on rigidity, since the fear will come. Taking topics off the table is not the same as never changing your mind. Real life brings real reasons, an injury, a bereavement, a genuine shift in circumstance, and those are not the committee. The difference is that the committee negotiates over feelings, while real reasons are facts. A closed topic can be reopened by a fact, never by a mood. Learn to tell them apart, and the door stays shut against the voices while still opening to reality. The person who holds a few non-negotiables is not brittle. He is anchored, and an anchor holds precisely because it does not drift with every current. Build the door for the moods. Leave it open to the facts. That balance is what keeps the discipline humane. The loop feels free because the cost is off-screen. The easy choice, the skip, the delay, the exception, sends a bill later to a person who cannot dispute it, your future self. By the time the bill arrives, the committee has gone home, and you are the one left holding it. The delay was never free. It was a loan against a life you had not yet met. The bill comes in forms that look like life rather than consequence, the body that resists, the skill that never formed, the relationship that cooled while you waited for the right time, the money that shrank while you deserved a break. None of these arrives with an itemized charge labeled negotiation. They arrive as the ordinary texture of a life, and you call it fate or luck or circumstances. It is none of those. It is the compounded interest on 1,000 small delays you were sure were harmless. A concrete case. A person avoids a hard conversation for 2 years, boundary unset, truth unspoken. Each avoidance feels like relief, and the relief is real in the moment. But the unspoken thing does not dissolve. It calcifies into a relationship where one person is always performing and the other is always guessing. 2 years later, the conversation is still required, now heavier. More history, more resentment, more to explain. The relief cost 2 years of quiet distance. The future self inherits not the original small discomfort but a larger one, plus the interest of all the avoided nights. He pays. The committee that sold him the relief is long gone. So before the easy choice, ask what is being billed and to whom. If the comfort is paid for by your future self, it is not comfort. It is debt dressed as relief. The disciplined person is not the one who never rests. He is the one who can tell the difference between a rest and a bill, and who refuses to sign his future self's name to the second. The bill always comes. The only question is whether you will still be the one paying when it does, and you will be because he is you. A fuller example of the bill, because the abstract version hides how ordinary it is. A person wants to learn a skill, a language, an instrument, a craft. Each evening the committee offers a reason. Not the right time, I deserve a break. Just this once, skip the practice. The skill, unpaid, does not arrive. 2 years later the person says, I never had time, and believes it. But time was not the missing ingredient. The practice was. The bill for 2 years of skipped evenings is a skill that does not exist, and the person blames the calendar for a choice the committee made for them. The future self inherits the absence, and the absence feels like fate. It was a series of small, billed delays, each feeling harmless, each compounding into a life without the thing. The bill was paid by someone who could not object, the future self, and the payer is you, wondering where the years went. There is a moment in leaving any loop where turning back stops being tempting, not because the temptation dies, but because you have built enough evidence that you are the kind of person who leaves. This is the point of no return, and it is quieter than the name suggests. It is not a dramatic crossing. It is the day you realize you have more kept decisions behind you than broken ones, and the identity has quietly flipped. Before that point, every kept decision feels like a battle, and every skipped one feels like a relief. After it, the kept decision feels like home, and the skip feels like a stranger. The change is not in your willpower. It is in your self-image. You are no longer someone trying to start. You are someone who does not renegotiate certain things. That sentence, believed, ends the loop more completely than any single act of effort, because the committee has nothing left to discuss. A woman described it as the day the voices got quiet. Not because they disappeared, they never do, but because they started sounding like outsiders commenting on a life that was already decided. I deserve a break still appeared, but it now referred to a person who had already done the thing, not one deciding whether to. The negotiation lost its subject. She had become someone the loop could no longer address, because the person it used to address no longer sat at the table. So do not wait for the point of no return as if it were a finish line you must reach before anything counts. It is reached by kept decisions, one at a time, and each one moves you closer whether or not you have arrived. The flip is the cumulative effect of refusing to reopen what you closed. You do not need to feel transformed. You need to keep the door shut on the topics that matter, until one day you notice the room is empty, and the light from the far side is the only thing left to walk toward. A note on the fear that the point of no return is cold, that a life without negotiation is a life without spontaneity or joy. It is the opposite. The negotiations you close are the ones that drained you. The life that opens is freer, not narrower. A person who no longer redecides whether to move his body still dances, laughs, rests, and changes plans for real reasons. The difference is that the small protections are settled, so his energy goes to the things that matter instead of circling the same table. The point of no return is not a wall. It is the moment the room stops being the center of your life. The door you walked out of is still there, but you no longer sit facing it. You face the light. People confuse discipline with a smaller life. It is a larger one where your will is spent on living, not on relitigating what you already knew. Reach the point not by force but by kept decisions, and the life on the other side surprises you with how much room it has. The committee's power comes from a lack of counter-evidence. You have spent years collecting proof that you negotiate. Every "I'll start Monday" is an exhibit. To leave the table, you need to collect exhibits on the other side. proof that you act without negotiation. Evidence is built deliberately, in small deposits, and it is the only thing that quiets a lifelong excuse. The simplest evidence is a streak you can see. Not a long one, a seen one. A mark on a wall, a line in a note, a calendar with a chain, something that shows to the only person who needs convincing that you kept your word today. The excuse, "I can't stick with things," loses force the moment the calendar shows a chain it cannot explain away. You are not decorating. You are building a case file against the committee, and the committee weakens when the file has more kept than broken. A man who had quit everything he started for 20 years began with a single rule: one push-up a day marked on a card, ridiculous by his own account. But the card filled, and the filled card argued with the voice that said he was someone who did not follow through. The push-up was never the point. The evidence was. Within months he had a drawer of filled cards, and the old story, "I always quit," had exhibits against it that he himself had produced. He had become the prosecutor of his own excuses, armed with his own consistency. So build the file. Pick one thing, keep it, mark it, and let the mark speak. The committee thrives in the dark where only its version of you is on record. Turn on the light. The evidence you collect is not for show. It is for the quiet moment when the loop says you cannot, and you can point silently at the chain and answer, "I already have." That answer, backed by marks, ends more negotiations than any burst of motivation ever will. A note on what kind of evidence actually works, because not all tracking helps. A long app with streaks and badges can become another performance, done for the badge, not the decision. The useful evidence is private and plain: a mark on a card, a line in a note, a chain on a wall calendar. It speaks to you, not to an audience. The moment the evidence is for show, the committee finds a way back in, because now the question is, will people be impressed, which is negotiable. Keep it private. The point is not to prove anything to anyone. The point is to have in your own hand a record that contradicts the old story. The man with the drawer of filled cards was not showing anyone. He was quietly arming himself against the voice that said he quit everything. The weapon was the paper. It still is. Build the file in private and let it answer the only voice that matters, the one that has been lying to you about what you are capable of. One more thing about evidence. It works fastest on the smallest scale. Do not wait to build a month-long chain before the committee notices. The first 3 marks, 3 kept decisions in 3 days, already contradict the story, "I never follow through." The voice that says you always quit meets 3 fresh exhibits and has less to say. Momentum in the file is its own evidence. The more marks, the quieter the excuses, because they are now arguing against a record, not a feeling. Start the file today with the smallest kept decision you can and let it accumulate. The committee feeds on the absence of counter-evidence. Starve it. The filled card is the opposite of the empty room, and you are the one who gets to fill it. The first 7 days of leaving the table are the hardest, and not for the reason people think. The difficulty is not the actions, they are small. The difficulty is that the committee does not believe you are serious, and it will stage a revolt precisely because you have stopped attending its meetings. Expect it. The louder the voices in the first week, the more certain you are actually leaving. The trap in this window is the dramatic start. People launch with a heroic Monday, overcommit, feel the resistance, and quietly renegotiate by Wednesday, having failed a standard no human sustains on day 1. The cure is the opposite: start absurdly small, keep it, and defend it. 1 page, 1 walk, 1 honest word. The goal of the first 7 days is not progress. It is proof to yourself that you can keep a decision without reopening it. Proof, not performance. A practical shape for the week. Choose 1 non-negotiable, small enough that skipping it would be silly. Declare the topic closed. Each day, do it and mark it. When the committee arrives, and it will, with "you can miss once, it's the first week," decline not because the miss is catastrophic, but because the precedent is. You are not building a fitness habit in 7 days. You are building the fact that a decision you made holds when you do not feel like it. That fact is the asset. The first 7 days are training camp for your credibility, not for your results. And be precise about what to expect emotionally so the week does not surprise you into renegotiating. Day 1 feels like a small win. Day 2, the voice says, you've proven it, take a day. Day 3, resistance arrives in a reasonable costume, a busy schedule, a low mood. This is the actual test, and it is not a test of willpower, but of whether the topic is truly closed. Meet it with the closed topic rule, not with a debate. The goal of the week is not to feel amazing. It is to reach day 7 with a chain and the quiet knowledge that you can keep a decision you made when you did not feel like it. That knowledge is the asset that ends the loop. People quit in the first week because they expected transformation and got resistance. Expect the resistance. It is the proof you are leaving. Keep the chain, and the week will give you back the only thing the loop took, the belief that your word holds. And be honest about the feeling. You will not feel transformed. You will feel resistant, then indifferent, then slightly proud of a mark on a card. That pride is the seed. By day 7, you have a small chain and a quieter committee, and you have met the only person the loop feared, the version of you who keeps his word when no one is watching and nothing is forcing him. He was there the whole time. The first 7 days just let him stand up. When you stop asking yourself for permission to do what you already know must be done, something practical and immediate happens. The delay disappears. Not the difficulty stays. But the gap between knowing and beginning, which used to be filled with a meeting, becomes a step. You do not deliberate your way to the page. You walk to it. The permission was never required. You were the one demanding it. This changes your relationship with time. Previously, a task waited for a signal, readiness, Monday, the right mood. Now it waits for nothing because the decision is settled and the only remaining question is the next small action. The backlog that used to feel like a weight becomes a list you move through, not a mountain you negotiate with. People describe this as getting disciplined. But what changed was not their capacity. What changed was that they stopped treating a done decision as an open question. A woman who left the table this way described the strangest effect. She stopped feeling behind. For years she had felt a step behind her own life, always catching up to intentions she had not acted on. Once she stopped redeciding, the lag closed because there was no longer a pile of reopened decisions, only actions, done or next. The relief was not from doing more. It was from discussing less. The meeting had been the weight. Ending it was the lift. So notice what permission was costing you, not the action, but the endless reconsideration of the action. You already had the knowledge, the means, and the intention. The only thing between you and the life was a committee you yourself convened. Stand up. The version of your life that begins the day you stop asking permission is not a fantasy. It is the life you would already have, minus the meetings. Walk past the chairs. The door was never locked. A final wrench the loop throws here, worth naming. It tells you that stopping the negotiation is rigid or harsh, that a reasonable person keeps discussing. But the discussion was never reasonable. It was a reopening of a settled thing dressed in reasonableness to delay an action you already chose. Refusing to discuss a decision you made is not rigidity. It is respect for your own word. The person who renegotiates constantly is not flexible. He is unanchored. The person who holds a few non-negotiables is not harsh. He is free because he is not spending his life in meetings about what he already decided. When the loop calls your exit rigid, recognize the word as a negotiation in a new costume. The costume changes. The meeting does not. Decline it the same way, the topic is closed. You are not harsh for leaving the table. You are sane. The table was the only unreasonable thing in the room. Underneath the whole loop is a quieter wound, the slow loss of trust in your own word. Every promise to yourself that you quietly withdraw teaches you, in a voice too small to hear, that your intentions do not matter because you do not keep them. The loop is not just stealing your time. It is stealing yourself, the part of you that can be counted on. Leaving the table is how you get that part back. Trust is built the same way it is lost, in small deposits. A kept word, even a tiny one, is a deposit. A broken one is a withdrawal. For years, the loop has been making withdrawals against your self-trust, and the balance shows in the way you no longer believe your own "I will." To reverse it, you do not make grander promises. you keep smaller ones. Reliability is rebuilt from the bottom, one kept decision at a time until "I will" starts to move you again. This is why the small non-negotiable matters more than the grand goal. The goal is far away and easy to disbelieve. The kept small word is today, visible, and it deposits directly into the account the loop emptied. A man who had broken 100 resolutions began with a single promise he knew he could keep, to make his bed each morning, and he kept it for a year. Not because the bed mattered, because the keeping did. He was reopening the account. Slowly, "I will" became a thing he could feel again. He had become someone he could trust, which is the only foundation a life can stand on. So treat self-trust as the actual asset you are protecting, above the habit, above the result. The page, the walk, the word, these are how you pay into the account. The loop is how you drain it. Leave the table not to achieve a goal but to become the kind of person whose word means something to himself. That person does not need motivation, because he has something stronger. He believes himself. And a self you can trust is the only companion who will be with you for all of it. A closing thought on trust, because it is the quiet prize underneath everything else in this audiobook. People chase discipline for the results, the body, the skill, the life. Those come. But the deeper gain is the relationship with yourself, which the loop had been quietly poisoning for years. When your word means something to you again, you stop negotiating not out of fear or pressure, but out of respect for a person you rely on. You. That person is the only one who is present for every decision, every start, every quiet follow-through. Repair that relationship and the rest of the life follows, because you finally have a partner on the inside who keeps his promises. The table was never just about the task. It was about who you became by endlessly letting yourself off the hook. Leave it and you meet someone steadier on the other side, the you who can be trusted and who can finally trust himself. There is a moment after enough kept decisions when you realize you are still sitting at the table in your mind, even though you have stopped attending the meetings. The chairs are empty. The committee has gone home, but you are still in the room out of habit, as if the negotiation might resume. The final step is not to win the argument. It is to stand, turn toward the light, and walk out. Leaving is not a single dramatic exit. It is 100 small stands, each one a decision not reopened. But there is also a single decision underneath them all, the decision to stop treating your own clear knowing as a topic for debate. That decision, made once and kept, is the door. Everything else follows it. You do not need to defeat the committee. You need to stop attending. The power was never theirs. It was the power you handed them by showing up. Picture the room one more time. The long table, the empty chairs, the versions of you who wanted to discuss the thing you already decided, and the door with the line of light across the floor. You can still hear a voice, softer now, almost polite, saying just this once. But you know its name now. It is the meeting, and you have somewhere to be, so you stand. You do not answer. You walk past the chairs toward the light, and the room grows small behind you. You do not become a different person by leaving. You become the person you already were before the meeting started, the one who knows what must be done and does it. The table was a detour, not a destiny. The version of your life that begins the day you stop asking yourself for permission has been waiting on the other side the whole time. Walk toward it. The door was never locked. You were only sitting down. A final image to carry out of the room. The man in the picture, dark shirt, walking toward the light, away from the long table and the seated versions of himself, is not leaving because he became someone new. He is leaving because he finally stood. The table did not vanish. He stopped giving it his attention. That is the whole secret, and it is available to you in the next 5 minutes, in the unremarkable hour, with no audience and no reset. You do not need to become disciplined. You need to stop negotiating with the discipline you already have. The person walking toward the light is you, the moment you choose not to sit back down. One decision can end years of starting over. The decision is not complicated. It is simply, "I will not discuss this with myself again." Say it once, keep it, and walk. There will be one more negotiation. There is always one more, because the voices do not vanish. They simply lose their seat at the table. So when it comes the last one or the next one dressed in a reasonable new costume, you will recognize it immediately. I'll start Monday, just this once. I need to feel ready. You will hear the meeting being called and you will have a choice you did not have before, to attend or to stand up. The difference now is that you know the meeting is optional. You convened it. You can adjourn it. The version of you who has kept his word 100 times does not need to reopen a decision he already made. He can let the voice speak, acknowledge it without arguing, and return to the action, because the action is settled and the voice is just weather. The last negotiation is won not by defeating the excuse, but by declining to discuss it. So end here not with a resolution, but with a door. The long table, the empty chairs, the line of light. You have been given no permission you did not already have. You needed no Monday, no readiness, no right time. You needed only to stop asking yourself whether to do what you already know. The man in the picture, the one walking toward the light, away from the table, is not a stranger. He is you, the moment you stand. One decision can end years of starting over. Not a perfect decision. A single, kept, non-negotiable one, repeated until the table is empty and the room is behind you. Stop negotiating with yourself. The life you keep postponing is on the other side of that door, and it has been waiting the whole time. Walk.